the hour. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is the second Tuesday of the month at 5 o'clock, which means I can only be doing one thing, which is our State of the Firm call. So today we have a really exciting topic that everybody asks me about, from grandparents to aunts to uncles to new families, to people with college age kids, to people fresh out of school that have student loans. So we're going to talk about 529 plans today. Before we do that, we've got some housekeeping stuff to take care of, and then we're going to get into the meat of the thing. So first, as always, because it's top of the hour, we go over rules of the road. So if you're coming on, just hopping in late, I've said it now for the recording as well. Email us your questions. The names and faces are all basically blocked off and put on mute, so that way everybody's privacy is protected for when we post this on YouTube. Questions, comments, those kinds of things, ping us either at my email address or ping Lauren Lindsay at operations@phillipsfinancialstrategies.com. We'll read your question during the Q&A and try and get it answered. If you think of it later because you're watching it recorded, same thing. Just email us, let us know, go onto the website, go into the contact us, raise your question. We will reach back out to you and get your answer completed for you. With regard to these, we're also starting to get online, get the PDFs, some of the supporting materials, some of that primary source data as well for everybody to look this stuff over. So that's the rules of the road, part one. Part two, let's talk about updates. A number of folks have already heard from us about required minimum distributions, which I talked about last month. We are trying to get through everybody as quick as we can. So if you see our phone calls or you see our emails, don't ignore them. Don't sleep on it. We're reaching out to you for an important reason. We have completed our updated ADV filing statewide. So it's a regulatory thing we do with FINRA and the SEC folks and the state regulators. Want to let you know that we're getting that stuff out the door. We've submitted it. We'll have updated things. It's going to be up on the website. You may see an email from us in the next couple of weeks when that stuff is posted, so that way you can have an idea of what the updated forms are like. So for our filings, we're also updating a number of our forms. This doesn't affect everybody, but it's some of our internal stuff. So 401k participants, some various other stuff. So you'll see some emails from us if we need you to give us some updated material. So please don't ignore it. Again, like, it's actually legitimate. It's coming from us. If you've got any questions, as always, pick up the phone, 202-681-1161, and give us a call and confirm. Please always do that, by the way, whenever you're seeing stuff. We don't send attachments directly. We do send a lot of stuff via DocuSign, and we're always happy to let folks know and confirm it. The other thing that we're doing, and I'm going to remind this to everybody, a couple of quick things on the housekeeping side. One is that we have implemented this thing called Red Capture for the moment. We're going to be trying to make sure that everybody prior to first meetings of the year, that kind of thing, prior to meetings going forward, gets a copy of the link. Please go online, confirm it, click through. We want to make sure that the data we have is complete and accurate. And what I mean by that is that every once in a while folks change jobs, or beneficiaries change addresses or phone numbers or email addresses, driver's licenses expire, those kinds of things. We want to make sure that we've got the most up-to-date data on file that we need to have for our record keeping that keeps the regulators and powers that be happy. In addition, that also, if we're updating an account or something like that, having accurate records, having those kinds of things on file is a big help to us, because it means that we're not coming back and pestering you guys a couple of times. So just as a reminder, we've started doing it. We've had positive feedback. I want to make sure that folks are seeing it and they're actually doing something with it. So that is the main stuff on the housekeeping side. Next, I guess it's time to talk portfolios. it has been a wild ride the first 5 weeks of the year as we talk about our portfolios and investments and what's going on with that aspect. So I want to start out first say the investment philosophy holds the same. We're still focused primarily in the portfolios that we manage on quality company management for the individual stocks. We're looking at companies that have strong growth prospects. So it's good balance sheet, good profitability, strong growth prospects, not overpaying a premium in the marketplace. Those are pretty easy metrics to follow. Morningstar helps us out in terms of combing, compiling data, helping to keep those portfolios current. You can see, by the way, for a number of folks where we do have individual equity portfolios, we did a little trimming, we did a little bit more rebalancing since the last time we spoke. Again, it's been volatile, so we've already done 2 trade rebalance. We've already done 2 rebalances inside of the portfolio to keep that investment allocation correct. That's on the equity side. A couple of little pieces. The S&P is still down for the year. The NASDAQ is down for the year. It's actually still in correction territory, lingering between correction and bear market. And small caps are down fairly significantly for the year as well. Growth, early startups are down fairly significantly as an index as well. A number of these areas in the marketplace really represent buying opportunities. For example, we saw, and I'll pick on some of these big companies, really large companies, dare I say even blue chips, that were down, from year to date, north of 10%. And these are not necessarily names that you want to shy away from. And these are companies also that reported good, strong earnings. So get out your shopping list. If you're working with us, and you've got questions about what our due diligence process is and, what we're looking at and why something gets added from the portfolio or something gets subtracted, feel free to reach out as always. So that way you can get my take on it as it relates directly to the money that we're managing for you. If you're doing your own shopping and, you've got some stuff in your own portfolio and some picks, now is always a good time to get out your shopping list, do a little bit of homework and determine kind of like what you want to buy. We can assist with some of that if you're having trouble with the homework or you decide that you just don't want to do the homework anymore. Again, reach out. We'll talk about what services we offer for that. So that's the quick and the easy part of it. And the housekeeping stuff, the internal stuff, which brings us to, and I'm actually ahead of schedule, 529 plans. So let's talk 529 plans. What are they? How do they get started? What's the benefit? Let's talk about that stuff first, and then we'll get into all the various other aspects. Now, I've got a couple of disclaimers for you guys, ladies and gentlemen, that are really important. So a couple of things. We are taking a financial planning approach to this today. I am not putting forward one plan or another. And depending on what state you live in, your actual plan itself may be what's called direct sold. So it's not an advisor directed plan where I can directly assist you and set up the account and manage it. It's a plan where you've got to go to the website, you've got to set the thing up, you've got to fund it. Don't worry. If we're doing financial planning for you, I can give you what the allocation kind of should be based on your risk tolerance and your time horizon. It's easy stuff. I can give you the mathematics for how much money you should put in. All those things are kind of available. We can talk through the pros and cons of the tax benefits for the state that you live in and the plan you want to choose. What I can't do, though, is go on and open it up for you and manage it and link it in. So just be aware of that limitation. That's for folks that live in, let's say, Maryland. The DC folks, we're located right here in DC. DC decided that they wanted the plans to be what's called direct sold a while ago. That's okay. It doesn't hurt my feelings. So that said, we are going to be referencing the DC plan, the Virginia plan, because that's where the bulk of our clients live. But, again, we're taking a financial planning approach to this overall perspective. So we're not putting forward one plan or another. And I want to make sure that that's fully disclosed and everybody understands that. So first and foremost, 529 plans, what are they? So 529 plans are a special kind of account that assist in saving for college and ultimately spending money on college. So the way that they work are the adults in the room, parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, anybody can set one of these up that is not a minor. Okay. You can set it up. You can, what you have to do when you set it up though, is you do have to name a beneficiary, someone who is a minor that is, and what I mean by that is that you kind of also don't really want to set one up for somebody that's like right at age 17 or something like that. You know, typically if you're setting this up for gifting purposes, you want the person to be younger, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you know, all the way up to like say age 17, 18. So that way you're getting money in. There are some mechanisms that allow you to get money in when you're a bit older. But there are some real specific rules around that and what we want to get into. And so if you want to put money in for somebody who is, say, over age 18, call me, let's set up a time, let's have a conversation about what you're trying to achieve and some of those kind of pieces first. Okay, so set this thing up. You've got a beneficiary. In my case, let's talk nieces and nephews. Set it up, fund it. Eventually those nieces and nephews grow up and, you know, they go to college or they go to higher education, and it's time for them to take withdrawals. Now they have money. They have a nice pool of qualified funds. I'll get into qualified in a second, that they can utilize for college. Now, qualified, what do I mean by that? That means is that they're in a special tax deferred, tax preferred account. And that's really important for everybody. So when it comes to this particular plan, give me a quick second. Those funds come out, they go directly to the college, the institution, or they go to specific qualified expenditures. And that is really important, is that they go to specific qualified expenditures, because if they don't go to specific qualified expenditures and they're identified on oftentimes in a state by state basis, what you could have is a situation where you are paying taxes on that 529 plan money when it comes out. So like, for example, and this is something that I've seen in the past, a nice uncle like me funds a 529 plan. They get it set up, time goes by, it's time to write a check for room and board, and lo and behold, the child chooses to live off campus. And so they pull money out of their 529 plan to pay their rent. That's not a qualified living expense. The qualified living expense can go towards room and board if you're on the university meal plan and you're paying money to the university, living on campus in a dorm. So these are the kinds of things that you want to pay attention to, and you want to be careful of when it's time to take withdrawals out of these plans. Now, that's the gist of set it up, put money in, take money out. Why do you do it? What are the restrictions? All right, so when you put money, so let's start with putting money in. So when you put money in, you get a state income tax deduction for the state that you live in if you utilize your state. So, or Washington, D.C. So for you Virginia folks, you put money into one of the many qualified Virginia plans. Virginia has like 3 or 4 at this point. Or in DC, you put money in, DC college savings. It has to be in your area. You can then take a state tax deduction. There are limitations for that, and that is particularly key that you read up on that item. The simple, easy answer is that you're capped at $15,000 per year to take advantage of the compounding. Now, why do you want to do that? Well, the reality is that you're now going to get tax-free growth on, you've taken it, you get the income tax. Now you're going to get tax-free growth on that money until it's time to take it out. Now, when you go to take it out, as long as it's for a qualified expense, you're not going to pay tax on that money again. So it's pretty nice because you basically sort of get a Roth type treatment on that funds. You pay taxes, you get a state tax break, not a federal, and it's going to be capped. Now, rules of the road. That's the basic design. Let's start getting into some of the more complex things because there's a lot of information out there in terms of how you put money in, how much you can put money in. I mentioned the 15,000. Every state's different. So, like, for example, in DC, you can be capped as an individual at 2,400 or 4,000 if you're a married couple. You can put in 10,000. You can go up to 15,000. What happens to that additional money you put in? Well, those additional contributions, they're going to carry forward for you. And that's, again, why I mentioned you want to be careful about how much money you put into these things. And then also on the back end for coming out. Next piece that we're going to go through here real quick is that tax deduction. What do you do? What if you live in a state where maybe you don't have the best plan? What do you do? Or maybe you've got some other funds in another state and you moved and you want to keep things together. Well, the good news is that per every 365 days, you can do one rollover from one 529 plan to another 529 plan. So let's say you live in a state where the 529 plan isn't so good, tax benefits are okay. Well, you put money in there, and then once a year, you're going to move money to whatever 529 plan you want to move to. Again, I can help you guys out with understanding these rules in a more detailed manner on face-to-face, depending on what state you live in, that kind of thing. So feel welcome to reach out, and hopefully we can answer those questions with a little bit more specificity to you. Next piece. How do I know if my plan's any good? Where do I find qualified withdrawals? What do I do? For that, we're going to go to screen share. So I am on one of my favorite websites, Morningstar. Morningstar.com, quick Google search, Morningstar, top 529 education plans of 529 or 2021. And they have a fantastic article for us. By the way, Morningstar also has a wonderful podcast where they talk about this stuff on a regular basis. And they talk about how they come up with these gold ratings. They talk about what's good and bad about all of these various plans. So Utah has been up on the top leaderboard for a while. And we can see here, by the way, direct sold, advisor directed. We can also see good plans. We can see what was upgraded in Morningstar's analysis. They give us a great review of all the details. And so this is just really a wonderful resource to go to Morningstar.com and have this annual report that they put out, and we can share with everybody. And again, it's also on the podcast. They usually, that review, I think it's in one of their November episodes, they talk about it. Next, always the IRS website. I'm here at least once a week. Last but not least, this place, Saving for College. Saving for College is a wonderful website. It's a great resource. You can see how a lot of these plans stack up. They are referenced, and you can see basically, you can, and this is kind of the nice part, is that you can find your plan by state. You can see all of the various plans. You can also see, they sell a lot of stuff in here too, by the way, so I'm not going to kind of spend a lot of time scrolling around or clicking on things because we're going to get some ad pop-ups. But, you know, the nice part is, click on DC. They've got a quick review of the plan. More importantly, they've got a link here. So I think every parent should kind of have this bookmarked somewhere in their favorites, and utilize it as they're getting their 529 plans set up. On to the next piece associated with this really quickly. By the way, I know I'm throwing a lot at you guys. I mentioned the IRS website a little bit ago. We are going to put, because this also covers 529 plans, we're going to put this up, link to it as well, because this will have information about 529 plans and the rules of the road. Next piece for you guys, and this is where we're going to get into a couple of things. This is the disclosure booklet. I'm using the one for DC as a quick reference. You will want to use the disclosure booklet that is appropriate for your state in the current year. What is important about this is that I mentioned qualified expenses. They have this book here. This book is going to tell you what qualifies and what doesn't qualify, and what the specific rules of your state are. So for example, we have qualified expenses. They're all highlighted right here for us. And we have ways in which there are non-qualified, things that don't qualify, okay? So make sure you consult this document always before you take money out. Look at it when you're putting money in. The other thing that we have also with this that I particularly enjoy, and I apologize for keeping things a little bit on the generic side, but it's important that we make sure that we refer to all plans and not just this plan. So contributions. These are a couple of things you're going to find these across all the boards. There's going to be only one beneficiary, which means one child per account. So if you have 2 kids, 2 accounts, 3 kids, 3 accounts. If you have a spouse and you have 3 kids, ladies and gentlemen, that is 6 accounts. So that's important to keep in mind as we go through this. And as you get your 529 plan set up and you get it funded. Those are the quick overview kind of pieces that you need. So we covered opening it, we covered putting money in, we talked about qualified expenses, what you can and can't do. Now we're going to get into a couple of the things that are really important, and I get asked about a lot. And so this may help to head off a couple of those questions that y'all have. So item 1, can I use a 529 plan to pay my student loans, pay my kids' student loans, just graduated? So simple, easy answer, yes. Through CARES Act, all the various things, some of this legislation that was just recently passed. Here's the deal. You can take a $10,000 withdrawal, one lifetime, and it is qualified expense. DC had it in their packet down at the bottom under qualified expenses. So you are able to take a $10,000 withdrawal. You are able to apply that to a student loan if you've got student loans outstanding. There are also some rules about how you open a plan, put money in, and then you can take money and pay for your student loans if you still have existing student loans. And that way you can at least get a state income tax deduction wherein you might have a phase out on some stuff. So that's key. The other thing, let's talk K through 12 education real quick. So you can pull out in many states, most states, DC happens to be one of them, $10,000 a year for qualified education expenses for K through 12. This is really helpful, especially if you start to see that in later years, maybe your kids are not going to be set up for academia, getting an undergrad, getting a graduate degree, some of that kind of stuff. You can start utilizing that money for qualified high school expenses and some of those kinds of things. So keep an eye on that. That's a great way oftentimes to mitigate some of those costs, because I had an interesting conversation, and I'm going to not pick on the school, but there was a private school here in Washington, D.C., and apparently first grade was like $30,000 a year. My undergrad was not $30,000. per year. Maybe that's a reflection of my age, but yes. So first grade, $30,000 per year for private school. So let's talk funding for a quick moment. If you're pulling $10,000 a year out for K through 12, and you also want to have money set aside for college, you have to make sure that you're putting in more than $10,000 a year. I know it's very interesting. There are a lot of people that say, well, you know, I think I'm only going to put in 11,000. In that case, then you should expect to have very little for actual college if you're pulling that money out. So just keep that in mind as you're funding, as you're putting money in. When it comes to the portfolios, what are the underlying investments? What are the things that I should choose? You want to start out with young children. You want to start out fairly aggressively, put money in every month so that way as the market goes down and up, you are able to take advantage of those down and ups and fund the thing and get growth on your money. The next piece is I often hear, well, what's college going to cost? I don't know. I honestly don't know, because in-state, out-of-state, private, public, we're starting to see some laws of large numbers kick in. Early on in my career, college was growing at 6% a year, compounded. We've seen a number of colleges, particularly with in-state, ratchet that growth rate back and, you know, have had tuition kind of close to flat or, you know, growing with CPI. So we just really don't know. And we are approaching, I have some folks in the academia world that analyze these sorts of things that have told me is that now we're starting to get into this point where, with regard to college, you're getting to a point where it's going to be hard to go to college, get a degree, and earn enough money once you're out of college to pay for the loans that you take out in order to, you know, basically have your degree. So there's going to be a lot that's going to go on. I'm sorry, I don't have a magic ball when it comes to, or a crystal ball when it comes to paying for college. But this video will hopefully give you a few reference points and give you a good idea of where to get started with your college savings plans and get you on the track to, hey, I'm going to put in money. I know what the limitations are within my state, and I know where I can easily pluck those from. And again, like if you want specific kind of help, you know, knock on my door, we'll get it squared away for you. But this is an incredibly useful tool. It's often overlooked in planning because the amounts that you can put in are small, because the tax deductions are fairly small, but all of those little things add up and give really big results in the end if you utilize them early and often. That's the gist of what I had to cover today, and then I wanted to make sure we went over. I know I'm coming in right at 5:30, but I do want to open the floor for questions, and hopefully we can give something a little bit more specific for everybody. So that said, I'm going to check the email and see what folks have. Right. Okay. I do have a question. So one question is, my mother opened 529 plan for my daughter. Do I put money into it or do I set up my own? And the answer is that you set up your own, because you are not the owner of that plan. So if you put money into that plan, you won't be able to take the tax deduction. And it's great because you get the compounding, but you certainly wouldn't be able to get any kind of tax deduction. So that may be useful. You may be able to do that and have fewer accounts if you happen to live in a state where they don't have state income taxes. But there are some other financial benefits that you're afforded. I believe Texas has some things where you can basically deduct against your property taxes, that kind of thing. So, but like I said, check with your accountant, check with the rules in your state. So you want to make sure of that. Let me check this other one, see if we've got any. All right, I've got one other question here, which is, can more than one child access the same 529 plan account, or how can they be managed if one of my kids doesn't use their 529 plan? So the quick, easy answer is that if you have two children or you have a niece or a nephew, if your child or niece or nephew that you're giving money to in the 529 plan ends up not needing it, you can change the beneficiary. So if you've got somebody who's a graduating senior, doesn't need the money anymore, and there's still plenty of money left in the account because maybe they got a scholarship, you can replace the beneficiary. Now, flip side is that if you replace the beneficiary, or when you replace the beneficiary, the new beneficiary cannot access funds in the same tax year. So that is really important to keep in mind. So the older child graduates, the younger child needs it because they're a rising freshman. Make sure that you're not pulling money out in the same tax year, because otherwise you won't be able to take a deduction, or excuse me, otherwise the money that comes out on the second, for the second child, could very well be penalized. Let's see if there's anything else. Oh, how do I determine if I'm in the best plan for me? That was next question I got. So easiest way to determine that you're in the best plan for you, like I said, Morningstar's got a great resource. I showed you the one website. There are a number of them out there, Investopedia, Kiplinger's, Forbes, they all rank 529 plans and will give you a good idea of what plans are the best for you based on expenses, fund manager performance, all that important stuff. So simply keep an eye out. It will change from year to year. And there will be a difference between sort of advisor directed plans like the ones I have access to and direct purchase plans like the folks that the entire population have access to. So that's the key piece. So that said, if there are no more questions, I will let everybody go for the day and let them enjoy the rest of their evening. So going once, going twice, I'll check the handy dandy thing again. So I've got another question, last question. Are there federal 529 plans? And the answer is there are not federal 529 plans. There are state ones, and so they're all run by states, and they all have various states. Now, some fund companies have more than one state where they work. So I think Fidelity has several. Vanguard has a whole bunch of them. Vanguard and American Funds are the two largest providers in the 529 plan market. I believe they still are. They were as of last year. So that should give you guys that should give everyone a good reference point for it. And with that, I think that's time to end. So I'll check and see if we've got one more email that has popped up. And I think that's it. So with that, I think I've answered everybody's questions, at least that I've seen come through. If you've got other questions that you think that come up, again, email, give a call into the office, see if we can't get them answered, and give you some FaceTime as relative to your specific situation. With that, good luck, everyone. I hope I answered some questions. I hope you gave everybody a good foothold in order to get started. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.